Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 4, and we've got a good one for you. I'm excited for it. A very fun guest who I work with frequently and every Sunday at US Bank Stadium. We have some very fun banter. I appreciate his assistance going back to my time, the start of my time in Minnesota. So really excited to have Jon Krawczynski on. We will get to him in a second. I want to start real quick by talking about Jersey Mike. No, I'm just kidding. I can't do that again. You can't run back one of your bits just this quickly. And I mean, though I have still continued to go, and I think I've almost run that store in Eagan, Minnesota out of Ham, Provolone, and Capicolo, or whatever you call it. Yeah, we're not going to do that again. I do want to start. So I tweeted something the other day. There's an account on Twitter, Dove Kleiman. You guys might know him. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, and I don't mind it very much whether I am or not. But he tweeted something about JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy has reportedly been struggling and blah, 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 blah. I tweeted, kind of quote tweeted. I said, anyone help us out of the year 2024 media environment. Someone replied and said, would love for you to cover this on your next pod. So I guess I'll cover it. I mean, part of me thinks it's the aggregation situation, you might want to call it, on social media these days with reports from training camp is kind of out of control. And I look, if there are people that assist reports and people on the ground and the way they reach fans, it's totally fine. And I myself on this podcast, I'm not going to reverse the trends of media, but it did. I was like, man, this guy says reportedly, but there's no report that he's actually linking it to. So if you have followed my stuff, if you have read us at The Athletic, read my Vikings coverage, if you've listened to this podcast thus far, you will know that JJ McCarthy has not struggled. He's looked pretty dang good. Better, at least, than I've thought he might have looked at this point in training camp. So it's just, it's frustrating to me. I hope people are able to delineate between the people who are present and providing fact every day and information and analysis based on conversations with people in the building, and the people who are just pulling from random aspects of the ether in terms of something that can enhance their Twitter account. So that's what I would say on that. I appreciate JD wanting me to expound, and that's probably all I should say. But no, things have been pretty solid at training camp. I mean, some quick hitters. Like I was pretty impressed Wednesday afternoon with Jonah Williams, the defensive tackle, a guy who had not really popped for me. Dwight McLaughlin made a really impressive pass breakup that will stand in my mind, and I'm looking forward to continuing to watch his development. Levi Drake Rodriguez had the 7th round pick from Texas A&M Commerce, had a nice one-on-one rep, and then jumped and chest bumped the defensive line coach Marcus Dixon, and I was kind of like, what the heck is going on? But it was electric, and it was some energy. Brian Asamoah shoved Johnny Munt out of bounds, and there was finally, it felt like, some life out there. So for as much as those two guys going at it, it is what it is. Like, it was nice to have some energy. But yeah, that's about it. You know, I've said this in writing and comments on social media, but I don't like reacting to every little minutia that I see out there, because I think it has the chance to skew the narrative one way or another in a way that I like guarding against, because these are just training camp days in the heat with not the full physicality that you're going to get in Cleveland at joint practices or in preseason games. So yeah, that's what I'd say. It might not be the sexiest talker, but that's what I feel most authentic and comfortable in terms of my reporting. So we're going to stick to that. Stick to the plan. Got some more fun features for you guys coming over the course of time over at The Athletic. So check us out over there. You can like and subscribe to this podcast if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. On YouTube, subscribe, and that way you'll get a ding when we got new podcasts. And also, yeah, I mean, there's a self assisting myself aspect to asking you to do those things like every other podcaster, all 450 million of us over the end of time. So yeah, please do those if you can. Would really, really appreciate it. It helps me, and my ego is what matters on the Alec Lewis Show. So no, thank you guys for being here. Episode 4, gonna hop into it with Jon Krawczynski right after this. I appreciate you guys listening. All right, Jon, Welcome to the show. This is Jon Krawczynski. He covers the Wolves for The Athletic. He is a senior writer here in Minnesota. I said he covers the Wolves. He also instructs me after each post game, providing exactly the runway that I need in terms of the story that I should be going after. John, how are you? Thanks for hopping on.
I'm good. What a thrill to be on the Alec Lewis show, man. It's I know I wasn't the inaugural guest, but I feel good to be in the nascent stages of this behemoth that is about to take over the Twin Cities. So.
Yeah, you're third. So you should feel pretty proud about that. Yeah, behemoth. Yeah. I haven't had the governor yet, like you on the Jon Krawczynski show, but I appreciate you naming yours what you did, so I could just copy you really easily. So I appreciate that.
Just give the people what they want. That's what I say. Just give them what they want, baby.
There's no question. I'll start you non-Vikings, and then we'll hop into it really quick. But have you watched Team USA? If you have, what have you thought of that and Anthony Edwards' performance in Team USA? That's really why all the people are here. You know that.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun to watch it. I think that a couple of takeaways, on the Ant front is it's been interesting to watch him understand where he is in the pecking order and play a role. He obviously has supreme belief in his own abilities, and I think that whether it's on the court or in ping pong or any other Olympic athletes that are challenging him to all sorts of different exploits, he wants to do that and he wants to win and he believes it. But I think that what we've seen from him so far is an ability to play team basketball and to kind of fit in and give them exactly what they need. And I think that really bodes well for, his next season with the Timberwolves and the mindset that he'll come into it with and everything that he's learning. He's clearly having a blast with KD and LeBron and all those guys. And so I think it's going to be great for him. But I mean, one of the little mini controversies that has been there is like, why didn't Jason Tatum play in the first game? What's going on with his role? Well, I mean, Ant is figuring highly into that. He's a better player than Jason Tatum, or he certainly gives them more of what they need. So you just are seeing kind of a 22-year-old that is kind of starting to scratch the surface of his prime, and I think it's pretty exciting.
I think I told you this, but covering some of those Wolf games, like the charisma of that guy in the locker room was different than I think, for me at least, I've seen up close from a guy like that. And maybe there are guys who compare with you to that, but I was just kind of blown away being around him. Is that crazy of me to say?
No, I think that the unique thing about Ant is, and we've seen it with Team USA as well, is like, he will tell you that he's the best player on the court, and he will let everyone know that he believes that he is the man, but he does it in a way that doesn't piss anyone off. Like he's so charming with it. Like everyone loves him when the same approach kind of applied in a different way with a different personality and the kind of different means could really alienate people. Or, you get people say, oh man, screw this guy. Like this isn't it at all. But, you see how his teammates react, and it's not just the Timberwolves teammates, it's the best in the world Americans as well. They all just love being around him. And so his ability to be both supremely confident but also have like this genuine humility about him, I think really endears him in a way that I think is unique. And you see it in the way that he lifts up his teammates, that he encourages them, that he talks about them in the media, that he tries to deflect some of the attention away from himself toward them. I think everyone just really appreciates it. And so there's definitely a magnetism there. And it is something that I think is very hard to do, but he makes it look really easy.
You mentioned the ping pong thing, and I don't know, people watching, listening, whatever. Like, I imagine they saw the video of Steph Curry calling him over. I wouldn't be surprised if he was like incredible. It just would not shock me at all.
Yeah, no, I think so what you do hear from people in his circle, is that he just picks something up and he's dominant at it. Ping pong, bowling,
Sure.
are two of his big things. That he just decided I want to be good at this, and then he becomes great at it. Now, is he Olympic? Like, would the gal who there? I think she would dust him.
Cooked.
Yes,
Yeah,
no question, no question. But but yeah, I think that he's just one of those naturally gifted people that this kind of stuff comes easy to him.
We'll transition to Vikings because I think that's the point of this podcast. If I can remember correctly, I think I might have set that up myself. I mean, I'm curious just for you, and I know you've been focused on a lot of different stuff right now, so you haven't been maybe as locked in as you will be soon enough. But just generally, does this current stage of like team building or the vibes around the team remind you of any time in the past? I know you've been around this team. You work for the AP. You've covered this team for a long time. So is this era time totally different for you, or is it reminiscent of anything in your mind?
I would say that it's unique to me because one of the things that has kind of defined this organization for as long as I've covered it is they have always seemingly had someone at quarterback, but there's often been like questions about that person's, I would say, relevance or ability to be the person long term. But there's always been established people there, whether it's the high end of Brett Favre or Dante Culpepper in his prime, or Randall Cunningham MVP, or like those guys would come through and play very well, or you'd have Jeff George, Gus Frerotte, like all these other like journeyman guys, but who had come in and done it at least at a reasonable level, but you knew they weren't going to be the guy forever, but that it was, hey, this is the guy for right now. Brad Johnson, plenty of these guys have come through that way. What is different about this team is we don't know if Sam Darnold is that guy because we haven't seen him do it. There's chances that he could have a good year if all the tools around him work out, but there's nothing to point to and say we have seen it work with Sam Darnold that way. And obviously then you have JJ McCarthy, who is going to be the quarterback here eventually. But we have not had that real kind of, okay, this dynamic, it just feels unique to me and feels new to me. And that really does obviously kind of lord over this whole season. Now, where I do unfortunately sense a little bit of similarities for a team is like, I remember the 2010 team that came off of the NFC title game in 2009, and then there just seemed to be things that kept happening.
Interesting.
Sidney Rice is a little banged up, and he hasn't really been able to do much, and then all of a sudden his hip is really trashed, where you find out like not well into training camp, and so you have the injury part of it. You have Brett Favre actually literally having to be begged to come back. You have just guys. There's just like sort of distractions that keep happening.
Sure.
And it really laid the groundwork for a messy, ugly season. And I think the dynamic is a little bit different because this team is clearly trying to transition to a new era where that team was trying to hold on for dear life to everything they had going on. But you look at Jordan Addison, Mekhi Blackman, Kyrie Jackson, unfortunately, like all of these things that have happened, it's just like, gosh, it's just unsettling. It does, nothing feels firm underneath the feet right now. And so like that's where I look at and just say, how are they navigating this stuff, and how are they sort of trying to get everyone's focus back on the field and back to doing what they need to do? Because that 10 team tried to do it and could never do it. This team obviously with different expectations and things like that, but just feels like there's just a lot of stuff that they've had to deal with and navigate that just is unsettling is the best word I can come up with.
I mean, to that point, I mean, we're talking Thursday, but Wednesday I was writing and I walked out to practice a little bit late, and literally I walk through the gates, I get out to the field. The first thing I see, literally before I see the PR staff, any other writer, is Robert Tonyan, who obviously isn't like a major, huge factor in this season, I don't believe, but he's on the ground, looks like he can barely move, with 3 trainers crowded around him and the cart coming over. It was literally the first thing I was like, what is going on? Like, I mean, it was absurd. So I mean, to your point, and we talked about this on the podcast you guys did on Talk North, just about a lot of the unsettling circumstances of the season, which, I mean, we'll see how it goes, but you just, to your point, you just hope the injuries and some of these circumstances kind of are quelled. I mean, what do you think of what you've read and heard thus far about JJ McCarthy? Like, are you trying to just think about it in a very clear-eyed way? Are you riding the wave of the optimism or pessimism, depending on whatever report you're reading? How have you consumed it thus far?
Yeah, I think first of all, from the bigger picture, like, I am a big JJ McCarthy guy. Like, when I was looking at the options at quarterback going into the draft, who could be there, who could not, I just really like the way that he went about his business at Michigan. Like, I loved the way that he, I think, took on a role that was probably not the best suited to maximize his draft stock. But he did it because this is how we're going to win games. This is what my coach wants. This is what my team needs of me. I'm going to do it this way. And, you know, my dad and I grew up kind of watching Michigan a lot. So I'm a Wolverines fan in a way. And so I watched most of their games. And, what I noticed was, every time the camera panned to him on the sideline when something was going on, he was absolutely calm, cool, collected, and like, we got this. And then he would go out when he was needed and make amazing plays. The Alabama game, like, all sorts of things stuck out at me. So from the macro level, I'm just big on him. I think he can be a really good player in this league. I think he can be the kind of leader, galvanizer, kind of quarterback that can really win a lot of games and really get a team rallied behind him. When you kind of zoom in on what the present is, I have definitely sort of erred toward the belief that Kevin O'Connell has made it kind of clear. Like, I want to take my time with this kid. I am not going to force him into anything. We were in Washington and we saw what happened when someone got rushed out onto the field before he was ready. And that's not going to happen on my watch. And so I have kind of really absorbed what I've seen content-wise from JJ with that kind of perspective of, this is all just, you know, it's not one play that's going to stick out. I'm not going to like put all my eggs in the basket of, man, he had a really good day today, or a really bad day, or a bad 7-on-7 session, or whatever it was, because I just think that this is going to be a process to get him ready. And maybe by the end of training camp, it will be clear, like, look, this is the guy. He's ready now. We got to go. But there's no decision that is going to be made, certainly this early in camp, that way. It's all designed to just lay the crumbs out, and JJ, you just pick one up at a time as you're ready, and you keep following that trail to where we want you to be. And so I've been very kind of sober in terms of digesting what that content is. I think his arm looks live to me. You would know, you're there more, but the arm looks live.
Yeah.
I like that. But there's two motivating factors here for the long-term project with JJ in letting him do it. One is, I think it's been proven that it's a very effective way to raise a quarterback in the NFL.
I agree.
Love and with Rodgers, Mahomes, all these guys. But two is, we've talked about this, Alex. These guys, Kwesi and KOC, do not have long-term extensions done, right? What is the easiest way to say I need more time? Hey, we still have this quarterback that you haven't even seen yet, right? This is our so kind of. It behooves everyone, I think, just to kind of take this thing slowly until it is absolutely undeniable that he's ready to go.
I agree.
And
I agree.
That's what I'm seeing. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. And I mean, Kevin O'Connell said at one point, I can't remember when he said this, but he's like, you want everyone in the building to want to be ripping my head off for not, like, it's time. And I mean, you want that to be the case before you make that decision. And it makes me think, your reference there of the extension aspect of it makes me think a lot about, like, baseball teams and how they operate. It's like, why would we call up the prospect now? If we wait 3 months, then it gives us more of a runway. Now, you hope for the organizational health decisions aren't made like that, but reality, I think, sometimes can be what it is. You kind of touched on this, but I wanted to ask you, like, if they end up deciding that JJ McCarthy, week 1, he's the starter, will your reaction be like, well, I guess he just proved it? Or will your reaction be like, maybe they succumb to the short-term kind of aspect of how this thing can go?
I think that the context all matters on this, right?
Sure.
Because we got to watch him in preseason. You got to watch him more in camp. To me, I think the only realistic and understandable route to the decision JJ McCarthy is our week 1 starter is that he is so good in camp that he just has command of the offense, that the huddle just is hanging on his every word, that he's making the throws, that he is undeniably the very best option they have. And it cannot be that, hey, Sam Darnold isn't really all that good. That can't be the deciding factor. If this is the case, if Sam Darnold isn't all that good and struggles, well, this is your decision. You made this as this was going to be your bridge quarterback. And if that means you put him out there and you lose games, and that's what it has to be.
It's the bet they made, yeah.
Yep. It's the risk in putting JJ out there too soon and then losing him is way too steep for me to be like, it can never be a, well, we don't have any other choice, so let's go to JJ here. Let's go out there and see what he has. Like, that can't be it at all. It's got to be, you know what? This guy is ready. Like, and he has screamed it, and Justin Jefferson is telling us, yeah, he's ready. KOC believes that he's ready. Wes Phillips believes that he's ready. Like, everyone involved is like, no, we can't hold this guy back any longer. Like, yeah. The dog is on the leash and the thing is like tearing off of the chain, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's what it's got to be. It cannot be, we don't really have anything else here, so let's just throw the kid out there and see what happens. So, like, that's what I would guess I would have to see before I'm like, yep, this is the right decision to make. Because I just think about when the Vikings had Donovan McNabb and Christian Ponder.
Mm-hmm.
And now I always thought much higher of McCarthy as a prospect than I did of Ponder. But regardless, you spent a first-round pick on him. You brought him in. And what they ended up doing was Donovan McNabb was so bad, and he was over the hill. He had nothing left, and that was a team that was trying to hold on and contend and get into the playoffs and all those things. And they basically just said, he is so bad, we have to throw this kid out there. And Ponder was not ready at all. He was running around like a madman. He had no concept of things. Now, if they would have sat him for an entire year and all that, would it have been different? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't good enough, and that's possible. But I do know that they did a disservice to Christian Ponder and really to the whole team by throwing him out there in the middle of the season when he clearly was not ready. So that's what it cannot be with JJ McCarthy. They're going to have too much invested in him. They've done too much to try to bring him along. And I do think that there is real promise that he could be your quarterback for 10 years or longer if you bring him up the right way and surround him with the right people and all those things. So, yeah, that's what I would just have to, it would have to be very compelling evidence that, look, this guy has it. He's CJ Stroud. These guys are just ready to go. And for whatever reason, it's clicked.
Yeah. And while I will say, I mean, he has made plenty of impressive throws out there and like the live arm, the velocity, like I got to be honest, the touch has been at a level that I think has impressed me that I did not expect to see this spring, whether it's red zone periods, whether it's just middle of the field 2-minute drill, decision making. I mean, on Wednesday, he identified a blitz from the nickel and made an effect. Like that stuff is advanced. But and I've said this in other spots. To me, the hurdle is the complexity of the offense, which is obvious. I mean, Kirk Cousins talked about it, and it is both reading defenses, understanding how to handle the game week prep, like all that stuff. I think the more time he sits, the more he can ingrain himself in that. And so that's why I'm with you. Like if he blows everyone out of the water and the locker room is chomping at the bit for him to be the starter, so that gives them the best chance, then that's the reality. But until it reaches that point, I still am in the Darnold starts week 1 camp. I mean, we touch on this aspect, the extension conversation around Kwesi and Kevin. What do you need to see this year to feel like they are deserving of that? And maybe it's them together, maybe it's individually you feel different about either one. How would you think about that potential future and where they lie as kind of the heads of this regime?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first of all, I think that Kwesi had a good summer when he needed to have a good summer.
Agree.
I don't think that I wouldn't say that he completely just blew everyone out of the water and grand slam with all the moves that he made. But I do think when you look at the draft, when you look at free agency, when you look at the way that he got Jefferson and Darrisaw signed, like all those things, he got his future quarterback. Like there were boxes that he checked that absolutely needed to be checked. We'll see how all of this plays out over the long haul with McCarthy, if he's the guy, with some of the other choices that they've made. But you do see like a real logic to the moves and a vision for where they're going. And I think that was important because there were times where you're kind of looking around at this and you're like wondering like what's the plan here? Like how are they going to execute this? Is everyone on the same page? All of those things. So I think from that aspect, good job. But what I want to see really throughout the season as it plays out is that there is an organizational harmony about what they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, I can't say that there's been tension or whatever, but I want to just see how this whole plan is like step 1 in their process to go back to division contention. I don't think they have to make the playoffs, for me to say, yeah, you keep them. I don't think there has to be a mandate like that. But I do think that you want to see the entire group operate as a Detroit Lions 2 years ago, right? As a team that is rebuilding, but that you see that they have made these steps. Probably, you get more guys like that Brian Flores wants, fits in his system, that, you get the offense humming the way that KOC wants it. And you see it and you say, you know what? We want to keep this group together and keep building on it because next summer or next offseason is huge, right? With all of their salary cap room and all of that to make some really big moves. And you want to see enough things that fall into place that say, that says we want to keep these two guys as our main decision makers to capitalize on the position that we're in now. And so I think that more than anything, and it's a little abstract, but that's kind of what I want to just see. I want to see this thing start to come together where you look at it and say, yeah, I can see after another big offseason, maybe they're right back in the mix, next year.
Yeah. I'll leave you with this. Thing you're most optimistic about with the 24 team, like roster-wise, and the thing that concerns you the most?
I am very concerned about defensive back.
Rightfully.
You look at, you're in a division with Jared Goff, who is, we can debate him, but he's had a good, he looks like he's settled in there and they're good. They're good with that. He's got weapons. He's going to challenge you. Jordan Love looks really, really good now. Caleb Williams, we'll see, but that whole Bears offense has a lot more weapons now. And I just, with the Blackman injury, with kind of the way that they, every other day there's another journeyman cornerback that shows up, and it's just like, oh, we've signed this guy now. We've signed, Bobby McCain. I'd never heard of Bobby McCain before. And I think they might want to rely on him a little bit. So that's just what I just wonder how they're going to be able to stop dynamic offenses through the air with no conceivable cornerback that really gets after you and covers you on the outside. I don't know who you rely on there in that role. So that's my biggest concern. Where are you at for that? Let's do that before I go to.
Yeah, no, I mean I would agree completely. You mentioned Bobby McCain. It's like Fabian Moreau is the guy they signed the other day, and I'm on the sideline at training camp on Pro Football Reference, and I'm like, Fabian Moreau. And I hope this isn't a bad thing to say because I cover the team, but it's like, I mean, how many starts? Where was he last year? What position at cornerback does he play? And then he arrives on Wednesday, and he's out there with the ones already. Like, it's Fabian Moreau time, baby. Like, we are loaded up watching it. So, yeah, I mean, Shaq Griffin, to me, looked really good in the spring. And I mean, as an older guy who they did not pay a lot of money, I was like, you know what? Maybe I could believe in Shaq Griffin going iron sharpens iron against Justin Jefferson all training camp. Who knows what ends up happening? And then he gets injured, and I mean, I believe it's a hamstring. They're positive about his progression, but I mean, it looked really bad the day it happened. And I mean, look, the Caleb Evans, the Duke Shelleys. I mean, you hope it's possible for those guys, but to your point, relying on them against the Amon-Ra St. Browns of the world, against the Christian Watsons, the freaking Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, three-headed monster, which I don't think is overstating that at all.
Nope.
It gives me a lot of pause, especially, I mean, the matchups outside of the division. You're going against Garrett Wilson in New York. You're going against Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs with Houston. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk are pretty good players I think you've probably heard of. Yeah. So, I still just am holding out hope. I think that, and I think internally it's still a possibility that a guy like Stephon Gilmore is in play, but the market for a guy like that is going to be big. And as training camp passes and other cornerbacks suffer injuries, his market's only going to increase. Plus, why would he sign and show up to training camp if you don't have to at age 33? So we'll see there, but you're spot on to me with that selection.
Yep, and then I guess what I feel best about, I mean, so the obvious one for me is I love that Justin Jefferson is healthy at the start of the season, and he's signed, he's locked in, and I think he's legitimately one of the very, very best players in the league and a face of the league. So I love that, and I love that he's going to be back out there dominating. But I'll kind of go a little bit. Kind of off.
Yeah, don't go
less obvious. Yeah, I'm really excited about Dallas Turner. Like, I really want to see this kid who has so much physical ability, who had came up through Alabama, who was clearly been
place.
honed the right way, and at a position of need for this team. Is he going to be like immediately dominant? I don't know, but like I really feel good or really excited about watching how he settles in, and I'm imagining that it may not always be super consistent, but I think that there's going to be times in games very early in the season where he does something that you look at and you go, holy shit, like that's the kind of like that just really jumps off the screen, and you're like, okay, like I think that this kid over the next several years is going to really emerge as the dominant defensive player that this team needs. And it might take a little bit of time to get there, but there are going to be signs early on where you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, like this guy, he's special. And so I'm looking forward, as much as we talk about JJ McCarthy and what happens there, I'm really looking forward to the other first round pick and seeing him establish himself and kind of grow and just seeing what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, you see him out there. He looks like he's built in a lab. I mean, from a size, speed, length, it's absurd. First, I thought that I saw this stat before the draft. They hadn't drafted an edge rusher in the first round since Erasmus James in 2005. And I saw that, and I was like, what? Like, I remember sitting in my apartment, like, screaming to myself, 2005, Erasmus James, were you covering? Like,
I was. So the best Erasmus James story ever.
Yeah, give it to me. That's why the people are here.
Yeah, so prior to, I had just moved back in 2005. I was in Indianapolis before with AP, and I covered Purdue as part of that beat. And that was a year that Purdue was really, really good. Kyle Orton, they got up to as high as 5th in the country. And they were number 5 in the country going into an late October game or early November game against Wisconsin at home. And Erasmus James wrecked that game, like absolutely dominated. And so my hometown Vikings draft him, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. Like, he's going to come in and dominate. That's exactly what they need. I was at the games when he was like, I know this guy. This guy is good. And
y'all are gonna be boys. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. And then I come home, and I start covering the team again. And one of the things, it kind of starts early that you're like, I don't know if this guy has it. And then that winter, as a hazing thing, the other defensive linemen take Erasmus James' clothes out of his locker and get them all wet, throw them outside, and they're frozen solid when when he comes back from his workout or whatever, because it's freaking 15 below. They freeze instantly. Yeah, and you would think most of the time you look at that and you're like, they got me. Oh, good job, guys. I guess I'll just wear my sweatpants home. Erasmus James was broken by that, like wow. So upset, like really visibly pissed off, hurt by it, like really upset by it. And you're like, man, like if this is gonna be it, like if that's what's gonna rattle you, I don't think this is gonna work out. And so unfortunately it did not work out for Erasmus James at all. But it's been a very, very long time since they've invested in a premier position like that, and hopefully Dallas Turner takes his hazing a little bit better than Erasmus James.
I'm glad no one did that when I first moved to Minnesota. Threw my clothes out there.
There's still time. There's still time. I might have to get over there.
Yeah, you didn't throw my computer out of the week 1 game against Green Bay. I appreciate it.
That's right.
No, this was fun. John, thank you for joining as always. It's great to catch up. Get your mind right. Covering football is not easy. I know you think it's this walk in the park, but you're going to be out there soon, and I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you fresh and ready. So appreciate it.
I feel good that I'm going to come out there and have no idea who Fabian Moreau is, and you didn't know. So like I'm gonna feel like a little bit better. Like, who the heck is this guy? And so, but I'm looking forward to it. I'll be out there I think next week and getting full into football mode, and it'll be fun to. I really am like legitimately intrigued by this team, not because I think they're going to win 15 games, but just because I want to see kind of how it all comes together. So I'm looking forward to getting out there and diving in, and your stuff's been great and can't wait to join you on the sideline.
Love it. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Alec.
All right. That's going to do it for the Alec Lewis Show. We appreciate Jon Krawczynski, who is the man. Always fun to talk to. He and I go back and forth a lot. I lean on him a lot as a mentor and person who does this job in terms of covering sports about as well as one can. And I think the people in Minnesota who have followed his work on the Wolves for a long time know that. So appreciate you guys listening to this. Appreciate Jon for hopping on. We've got a game next week. They play the Las Vegas Raiders. Man, am I excited for the actual football action. So stay locked in. We'll have some more guests later next week. As I've said in previous episodes, let me know who you want to hear from, what you want to hear about, the formats you want to hear me kind of attack, and I'm all ears and open to whatever you guys prefer because it's your deal. And part of me doing this is to connect with you guys and have as much fun as I think I knew we could. So, follow me on Twitter at Alec_Lewis. Like and subscribe this. And until then, enjoy your weekend. If you're coming out to training camp, stay cool as best you can. That's the Alec Lewis Show. Appreciate you guys listening.